don't need to repeat this, but everybody is certainly quite aware of what's going on financially across the country, the state, and it's in the news every single day. And as a result, we're no different than any other of the communities associated with having to deal with potential shortfalls in the current year's budget. Specifically in the areas of town revenue shortfalls, these are revenues that the town achieves through fees and motor vehicle excise tax, etc. Also, there's been a growth in unpaid real estate taxes, which we refer to as tax liens. There's tax foreclosures going on, bank foreclosures, additional abatement requests, and a potential reduction in state aid is possible this year. We've been warned about it. I know our legislators are working very hard to prevent that from happening, but come January, we're expecting to hear some news, and it may not be in our favor. The collapse on Wall Street has impacts caused by high interest rates and availability of borrowed money, and direct impact on retirement income, which has effect on those citizens that live in town that are retired and living off of their 401ks and retirement funds. And an increase in unemployment, and that's been reported in the news recently, and it continues to be a focus of the current financial situation. All of these things are affecting our revenue forecast for this year. Before we go on, though, there has been some good news over the past 2 weeks. When I first set up and asked the board to schedule this joint meeting, some of this news wasn't available. First, our assessors have identified an additional $492,000 in new growth revenue. We have received an additional $2 million in state aid from school board assistants for the construction of the Batchelder School. And that brings the total to $7 million in the past 6 or 7 months. We expect to receive between $1.5 and $2 million additional state aid for the construction of the school, and this will occur as soon as they complete the audit. I think the allocation that they have granted the town is 50% of those items of that school that qualify. The state aid will reduce our override debt accordingly, but it will not help us in our current annual budget. We've also received $663,000 in a class action suit from several major oil companies as a result of NBTE detection in the town's water supply. These funds, again, do not help our operating budget, but will be allocated to the water department for capital improvement. Specifically, the money will be put into the Stickney Fund. So back a few weeks ago, I made this presentation to the board, and I'll direct your attention to the shortfall column. We're projecting motor vehicle excise tax below what we had put in the 2009 budget. We've dropped that number to 10% below the 2008 actuals. A lot of what has flagged us on these issues has been specifically the actuals for 2008 coupled with the trends. Fees are down $60,000, department revenue 5, licenses and permits, and this centers around building permits, etc., is down $144,000. Fines and forfeitures $5,500, and then projecting unpaid real estate taxes of $480,536, which would be converted to tax liens, and personal property minus $10,000. So that resulted in the shortfall that was published in the transcript a couple weeks ago. This must be on a timer. Of $751,927. However, the tax liens, we found out from DOR, do not have to be made up. They basically get put on the balance sheet as an asset, and we can continue to operate without having to make that up in this budget year. It does have an impact as we go forward, because it has a direct impact on our ability to generate free cash. And that left, that left a deficit of $261,000. Now, what's happened over the past 2 weeks, and before I go into that, maybe I should talk about the reasons for the shortfall. I mentioned this, the motor vehicle excise tax. Auto sales are down about 15%. Fewer and less expensive new vehicles are being purchased. And most of the excise tax revenue comes from the newer cars. So it's not like the number of cars in town haven't gone down, but the age of them have, and the number of new ones replacing the old ones is down. Building permits for new construction is down. Fewer and less expensive new single-family residents are being built. And again, the unpaid tax liens have been on the increase since 2004. And here's kind of a picture of the trend. From 2004 to 2008, we've gone from a little over $200,000 in liens to $609,000, and we're now in a period that economically is in worse shape, and we are expecting that number to grow. So the immediate steps that are being taken, general government is put on a hiring freeze. Hiring freeze have been put in place, and a spending freeze is being contemplated. And if you take a look at what that means, I've got three figures here. $100,000 savings in spending is about a 0.94% across the board general government decrease. And similarly, 150,000 is 1.4%, and 215 is 2%. Just to put the numbers in perspective, the town administrator has been asked to identify $100,000 in budget reductions, and the school department was asked to identify $200,000 in budget reductions. And the assessors were asked to revisit new growth, and the collector is being more aggressive about collecting over new taxes. These are some of the things that are going on right now. Dealing with the revenue shortfall, with the exception of tax lien shortfalls, it's a typo there. It's estimated, in estimated revenues require budget adjustment. Do not require budget adjustment. Sorry, with the exception of tax liens, shortfalls in estimated revenues require budget adjustment. The DOR treats tax liens, I mentioned this, as an asset. Therefore, lost tax revenue due to unpaid taxes do not require a budget adjustment. However, tax liens can result in cash flow problems and have a direct impact on free cash for the following budget year. Now, I had a hard time swallowing what that meant, so I tried to present it graphically to you. The tax liens, as we're projected, of $490,000 is like an empty bucket, which contains $490,000 of capacity. And the available cash is money that comes into the town that's not necessarily allocated to the budget, which would generally generate free cash, surplus revenue, unspent budget items, etc. Start to fill the bucket. And before the bucket is filled, we have no free cash. So essentially, we could go into the following budget year without free cash, and we have a substantial amount of additional revenue to collect before free cash shows up. And typically, free cash is used for our capital expenditures. In the past, it's been used to fund the snow and ice deficit, and last year some of it was used to put back some of the cuts that were made in the previous fiscal year for the schools. So the action taken thus far is there was $130,000 of revenue, some of you might remember from the April town meeting, and due to a formula error in a spreadsheet, was not allocated. And that money has been applied to the 2009 motor vehicle excise tax deficit. Assessors reviewed new growth, and as a result, an increase of, it's not $492,000. I didn't correct that slide.
360.
It's 362. I had counted $130,000 of new growth for the Berry twice. The tax collector has stepped up collections of overdue liens. Tax payments resulting in collections so far $47,000, doubling what was collected in the same period last year. So there is an effort going on to try to keep that lien number down, and hopefully we can do something about it. The concern I have regarding tax liens are a lot of people that have mortgages pay their real estate tax with their mortgage payment. And banks typically make sure that that payment gets to the town. So the growth in liens could be from our elderly people that are been in their homes, don't have mortgages, but are having a tough time paying their tax bill. Working to reduce the F-2009 budget by $300,000 with a split of about 60-40 between school and general government. So this is the same slide I showed you before, but with the adjustment of the additional new growth, and the 362 is the correct number here. When you run through the math, basically, $389,000 basically is the shortfall total, and when you consider that the tax liens don't have to be covered in this budget, we actually have $101,000 of available money. Now, one might think that, let me go back to this. Subject to further state budget cuts, of course, is the this number here, the $9,427,000, which are our state receipts. Tax liens are considered an asset, I've mentioned, and this additional revenue, we still don't have approval from DOR. We hope to get it, but we have not, as of this meeting, received that approval for the additional revenue. So immediate general government cost-saving actions, mentioned the hiring freeze and the spending freeze. Have gone through that. Why reduce budgets now? Well, assuming that the additional new growth is approved by the DOR, one might say, well, we've got our current shortfall covered, and we even have a little more to deal with what might be coming. Well, first of all, we don't have a DOR approval. Second is we need a hedge against possible cuts in state aid in January. We also need to help reduce the impact of tax liens on free cash for 2010. And we need to be in a better financial shape to deal with the FY 2010 projected deficit. This is backing up the reasons why we should be conservative about our 2009 budget. The estimated tax increase, and this includes the new growth that the assessors have identified. By the way, the new growth is the result of one big piece of it is Berry. And the Berry project, we were allowed to count progress through June 30th. And obviously, April town meeting, we made those decisions. We didn't have those numbers. So that's one reason for it. Then they went back and looked at some of the other developments in town and have made some adjustments, caught up with some of the backlog. In the projected shortfall for 2010, so our estimated tax increase is